Hey everyone, this is Dr. Drizzle, and welcome to the National Park Adventure, Crossing America. Welcome to Amistad National Recreation Area. Located in southwest Texas, where the Rio Grande meets the Devils and Pecos River, Amistad National Recreation Area is a breathtaking destination known for its crystal clear waters, rugged canyons, and ancient rock art. A huge thanks to the National Park Foundation for their collaboration on this project. Now, let's welcome our fabulous rock star Ranger Jack.
So good to have you.
What a beautiful background you provided.
I love it here.
Yeah. Well, I know that you've been here quite a while, but before this place, can you tell us a little bit about your journey into the national parks?
Sure. Well, actually, this is where my journey in the national parks began. I was intern for the previous park archaeologist here when I was in graduate school. And after he retired, the park was able to bring me on as the park archaeologist. And so I've been archaeologist here since 2009.
So you got your degree in archaeology?
Undergrad and master's.
And you actually brought me to a place today where we're standing on a very old rock. Can you tell us a little about that?
Sure. So this is a 100 million year old Cretaceous limestone from back when this was an ancient seafloor. So there's our paleontology for the day. And then actually within, not very far from where we're standing, native peoples would have made camp and enjoyed the same view that we're seeing here today.
Well, tell us a little bit about Amistad National Recreation Area, what it's known for, how it became a park, just whatever you feel like sharing with us.
Sure. So, we're probably best known as a bass fishing destination, but as an archaeologist, my focus has always been on Texas archaeology, and this is some of the most exciting archaeology in the state. This area actually just January of 2021, this broader area that we are a part of, that Amistad and some of our Texas Parks and Wildlife partner state parks are part of, is the Lower Pecos Canyon lands. And this Lower Pecos Canyon lands, some sites within that were recently designated the Lower Pecos Canyon Lands National Historic Landmark, recognizing the uniqueness and the significance of the archaeology out here. So that's representative of how important it is, and I'll circle back to that later. The park is here, partly in recognition of that Native American heritage, also for recreational opportunities. Again, and that's in our park name, right? The Amistad National Recreation Area. The dam was built for flood control. It made this huge, beautiful blue lake in the middle of not quite the desert, but it's a semi-arid savanna. On the edge of the desert, where the Chihuahuan Desert meets the Texas Hill Country and the South Texas brushlands, and where the Devils River behind us here meets the Rio Grande River and the Pecos River. And recreational fishing and boating opportunities, some wonderful canoeing and kayaking, fishing. The dam serves for flood control, and then irrigation further downstream in the lower Rio Grande Valley.
So you're talking a lot about geology here. So tell us a little bit about those caves that you were talking about earlier.
Sure. So, this is the limestone karst environment. So we have lots of, caves like you normally think about with, stalactites and stalagmites like, Carlsbad or Mammoth or, those kinds of places. And in fact, we're, I think, the only place in the United States where the Mexican blind catfish lives, and it's an endangered species that has no eyes, that lives down inside some of the caves here within the park. Then we have rock shelters where Native Americans got out of the elements for thousands and thousands of years, and they painted pictographs, very impressive panels probably recording, stories and histories and myths and those sorts of things. And, brilliant, red, yellow, black and white, usually, 4 colors or more, very, very complex designs.
Where did they get those colors? Because this was years ago, right? So
Sure.
it's not like they went out to Michael's to get this.
Exactly. So they made it from things they found in the environment around here. The reds and yellows would have come from iron-based pigments, mineral pigments. Like hematite for the red, limonite for the yellow. Those would be ground down into a very fine powder. The black was probably a manganese oxide. Those finely ground pigments would then be mixed with an oil, so maybe deer fat, for example, and then that would be thinned down, and it would make, so basically it would be an oil paint that would go onto the wall. And then since we're talking about mineral oxides, a rust red, rust will always be rust color. It's not going to fade. And if you've ever seen like a barbed wire fence over rock and the rainwater drips down and it stains the rock red, you put that rust-based paint onto that rock wall and it's going to stain that also. So it's a very long-lasting, enduring paint.
So where will we find most of these beautifully painted rocks?
They are in the canyons of the Devils, the Pecos, and the Rio Grande. The most significant site here within Amistad National Recreation Area is called Panther Cave, and it's right where a canyon called Seminole Canyon meets the Rio Grande, but you can only get to it by boat. But our partner Seminole Canyon State Park and Historic Site has tours to other rock art sites on their property that are a little bit more accessible. And
didn't you tell me that this is like one of 3 of the most protected or beautiful painted places?
Yes, of the most complex rock art styles in North America. What we have here is called the Pecos River style. There's probably 5 or 6 different Native American rock art styles that have been documented within this region. Of those 5 or 6 styles, the oldest is also the most numerous and is also the most complex, and that's this Pecos River style. And it's found, in about a 50-mile radius from where the Pecos flows into the Rio Grande, 50 or 60 miles. So east here towards Del Rio, west out towards Dryden, north up towards Interstate 10, and south down into the mountains on the horizon in Mexico.
You mentioned that this was a reservoir.
It is.
So can you tell us why you had to build a reservoir here?
Sure. So this part of southwest Texas is still close enough to the Gulf Coast that hurricane and tropical storm remnants will come up and stall out around here and drop immense amounts of rainfall. In what's otherwise kind of a semi-arid, edge of the desert kind of environment. And so we've had several bad storms that have caused catastrophic flooding. And so the Amistad Dam was completed in 1968-69 for flood control to protect communities downstream. And then also as a reservoir to store water for agriculture and municipal use down in the lower Rio Grande Valley.
Earlier this week, I heard that you guys were out on a boat doing water testing here. So it seems like there's a lot of research that happens at this park. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the research that's happening here? You
bet. So, all kinds of fun things going on. We've been doing a cave and karst inventory. I mentioned caves and the Mexican blind catfish earlier. We've been going out trying to inventory all the caves in the park and assess the habitat and the biological communities there. We sample the springs, looking at the water quality and how much they're flowing and tracking that year on year. And then a lot of monitoring for invasive species, trying to preserve the habitat here as best we can.
So we know that when we visit national parks, we do have some challenges, and you just brought up one of those, these invasive species. So let's talk a little bit about those unspeakable things, those zebra mussels,
Yes.
And what's happening in this area with those.
Sure. So they're not here yet. That's the good thing. But they were introduced to the United States in the Great Lakes area in the mid-1980s, and got into Texas maybe about 10 years ago. And now a lot of the lakes in central Texas and central and north Texas have invasive mussels in them. And I mentioned this lake is probably best known as a bass fishing destination. We're on a lot of tournaments. People come from all over to fish here, and so we're trying to help make sure that as people come to fish our lake, they're not bringing with them these mussels or their microscopic larvae, so that then they would establish a population here. And so far we've been able to keep them out, and we want to keep it that way.
So we know that invasive species are usually non-native, and they come in and take over the resources that your native species have here. So that's probably one of the big reasons you want to keep those out of here. Now you guys have a policy here, or a mantra.
Clean, drain, and dry.
Clean, drain, and dry. How's that going so far? Do you have people that are checking boats?
We do.
And what happens if there's something on them? Do you have some types of machines that they can use, or what do they do?
Yeah, we would direct them off to the side and do a very more careful inspection and work with the owner of the boat and get it cleaned.
Well, it sounds like you might need a little help. So I've got some people that can help you with that.
Fantastic.
If that's okay. So kids, we're going to ask you to help us. Now, we know that we want to get along with all people, but sometimes the species of animals, we need to sort of send them on their way because they're taking over the resources. So we're going to be talking about these invasive species of zebra mussels. Now, we know what the park is already doing, but I think they're going to want your ideas too. So could you come up with some new type of cleaning machine that they could use, that could be portable, that they could probably rent for their boat and immediately clean the boat off before they get into these beautiful pristine waters? Could you create some type of public service announcement just to remind people that you want them to
clean, drain, and dry?
Yes, and make that into a really fun jingle that will help people remember that. We know that you guys are the ones that are going to inherit all of these lands when we get too old to take care of them. So we know that you're interested in doing that now. Now, invasive species of zebra mussels are not just here. We have invasive species all over our world. So after you've thought about this and done some research on these zebra mussels and some ideas that you can share with the rangers here, we want you to look in your own communities, do some investigations, talk to people. What are species that have invaded your area, and what are you doing about them? So we know the spotted lanternfly is something that is coming from the north down into the southeast, and we want to make sure that those species are not taking the resources. So since we know that this is a problem all over the world, what can we learn from Amistad today that can help make a difference in your community tomorrow? Now you're going to see the social media tags running across the screen that you can share with us. You can also tag the National Park Service. Make sure you tag us at #expeditions and education, but don't forget to let the rangers know what you've decided, because they really do need your help. I think this could be interesting because we don't want the zebra mussels to get here. And until we change some human behavior,
That's exactly right.
It's going to happen, right? So maybe our kids can be that voice for you, even if they live up in Maine or up in Seattle, Washington, or down in Florida, which have some of the same issues.
The whole country has these same issues. So this is something that's relevant for everyone.
Yeah, and this could give you a little break. Maybe the new prototype they build will let you have an extra 5 minutes off a day.
Probably I'll go fishing.
You can go fishing. That would be wonderful. Well, our kids love national parks, and some of them didn't even know they loved them. So they started sort of watching this series, and they're scrapbooking, and they're finding all these amazing ideas. And one of the questions they always have for us is, how can I wear that flat hat one day? So I'm going to ask you, if you don't mind, to look in the camera and give our kids some pointers, if you will, on how they can have your job one day.
Sure. Well, a lot of hard work, and just stay at it and keep a good attitude. Try to, learn as much as you can. Don't stop learning. Don't stop trying. If you're curious about something, learn it, share it. When I was in college, I was a summer camp counselor. That was kind of the combination of taking archaeology classes while being a summer camp counselor. working for the city of Austin at that time, really kind of made, I want to work in, I want to do resources stuff, but I want to work in parks and share it with people. And was able to find that in the Park Service. And so I think, just, whether it's parks or whatever you want to do, look for places that do that. Find what you love, what, work that feels like play, and just put your heart and soul into it and go for it.
We like to say that when you find your passion, find a way to intersect it with your purpose. And then you'll never have to work a day in your life because you're just doing the things that you love to do.
Exactly right.
Well, thank you so much for having us here today. Thank you for this beautiful backdrop, this wonderful weather. I'm not going to thank you for the prickly pear cactus because I think my husband got stabbed by a few of those. But I do thank you for doing what you do and the way that you're trying to preserve this place. And I think that we probably have inspired a new group, a new generation of kids that want to do this when we leave this place. Does that sound okay?
Hope so. Absolutely, and thank you for doing what you do.
Thank you. So on behalf of the National Park Foundation, Dr. Drizzle, and Ranger Jack, we are out of here. Have a great day, everyone.